everyone, and welcome to the Dancing Bear Enlightenment Academy podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Beverly, and we have a wonderful guest joining us today, Janice Steinbach. She is the Helper's Guide, and she will talk to us today about take control, reflect, and refocus. Hi, Janice, and welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me, Beverly.
Well, we're very glad that you could join us today. So, Janice helps life coaches, mental health experts, and professional healers to prevent and prevent and relieve burnout. She has been a licensed professional counselor for 19 years and in private practice for 9 years. She lives with her husband and teen children in Colorado. Oh, that's really wonderful. You have a lot of experience. So tell us your personal journey, how you got started in your current profession.
When I was a senior in my undergraduate program studying psychology,
Mm-hmm.
I won a lottery so that I could take a class with a guest professor. This is an academic lottery, Beverly. You appreciate
Oh,
that.
okay. Makes more sense.
So I could take, at that time, HIV prevention from a public health expert.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I took that class, I thought, I want to do something to help my community. And so I attended a health conference and, I was showing up all ready to just learn everything there was to learn so that I could help people. And I sat down, I had my pen in my hand and my volume of paper to fill out at this conference. And a mentor stepped on stage and told a story of showing up to work with his patient. And he was kind of out of sorts, not having the best day. And the patient noticed this and responded, said, "What's going on? What can I do to support you?" And the mentor was taken aback, like, "What? Well, I'm here to help you. You're not supposed to be helping me." And the patient said, "You are no help to me if you do not take care of yourself." Oh my
Slap in the
goodness.
face.
Was I on the wrong track?
Wow.
Here I was thinking I had just having my heart be in the right place was all I needed to make a difference. And obviously, like many other people, I had some cleanup to do on my end before I was going to be ready to really be out of the way from really being able to help people without being in my own way. So what I learned that day, just like the mentor learned in that story, that I also had some some refocusing that needed to be done, that I needed to look back at all of um, the pieces of my life that could be distractions, and to myself and to other people that I wanted to help. So that put some more items in the curriculum than my Master's of Counseling program had included.
Yes, we all have to get our act together and our stuff out of the way. I always like the phrase healer, heal thyself, because until you do, you really can't help others. And they see through us, they see everything, they know where we're coming from. But
Yeah. And so that gets me to where I am today.
Mhm.
Fast forward through all of the community mental health, all of the working with teenagers everywhere teenagers end up, and all that fun stuff. And I realized that I'm not the only helper who has faced this challenge, the temptation of focusing on our clients when maybe we're depleted
Mhm.
and need to refill
Mhm.
our resources so that we can be better helpers.
I think that's true of every profession. We can always get burnt out. I know in the computer industry, when I was in that industry, burnout was pretty frequent. But if you're in the helping industry and you burn out, you're no use to your client. So that's a big lesson to learn. Um, so, what is the primary struggle you're seeing with these folks that are burnt out now, the coaches and other professionals?
Well, I'm talking to you after the world has been dealing with this pandemic for almost 2 years. And it's a it's a unique time.
Mm-hmm.
As in the mental health industry, we like to complain about the stigma and the lack of funding, uh, difficulty accessing services. Wow, the pandemic just blew all that off the tracks. Um, so, uh, so now a lot of the things that people normally do to support themselves have either been not available or had to be shifted into, like we're talking online, right? Many people hadn't done this before
Right.
the pandemic. um, right? And so it challenges us.
Mm-hmm.
And the brain likes things to remain the way they've always been,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's not good for us.
Mm-hmm.
The brain likes stability. And so we've had to go through so many changes as a world at the same time, um, in addition to trying to care for each other, um, family, friends, colleagues, and clients. So it's a unique time for for all of the helping professions to try and figure out how can we do a good job for ourselves and for our communities. So, so my list is it's a bit longer, I would say, if I had been talking to you in 2019.
Yeah, things have pretty much been in people's faces, their relationships, their families, their personal views. their values. People have had to really address all of that and come to terms with who they are and what they value and why they're here. Yeah, it's been challenging. So when you help people, do you have like a process you use, a formula? What's the secret you have for helping them?
So let me tell you a story. I am going to talk about a helper. I'm going to call her Joe. So, uh, so Joe was inspired to make a difference in the world and had this magnificent presence. And so everyone who interacted with Joe was just comfortable and wanted more of that energy. So behind the scenes, what was happening is she had created a free charging station. And all these people she interacted with were happy to plug in to her space. So then over time, what happened? Joe became exhausted, grumpy, confused.
What do you mean by plug-in station? I was thinking of an electric car or something.
It's kind of like that. I'm using it as a metaphor
Oh, okay.
for how we
We sometimes go
unaware, we
unaware.
can be unaware
Oh, okay.
that people are using us as a resource when we're
I
we're
call
not
them
aware.
I call them energy leeches. People that suck your energy.
So
Okay.
yeah, so what I do
Mm-hmm.
is um I would I would help Joe
Mm-hmm.
to detach those cords that don't belong.
Mm.
So let's say cords that belong to adults who are capable of managing their own place in the world. Some of these cords may be old from
So
people we haven't interacted with for years.
just to be clear for the audience who may not know what chords are, they're energy connections that we have between people. When we're born, our mothers and fathers, if we have both, they cord us because as an infant you need that. But once we grow up, we need to disconnect those cords. And you just, by your own intention, release it or call it back, depending on whether you sent one to someone else or they sent it to you. So that's what we're talking about here. So sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Uh, and then other cords could be things that we have thrown out into the future that I call worry cords for stuff that may never happen. So this is a process. It's a 3-step reflection that I teach people. And it's very simple for me to say what it is, not always so easy to do. So my 3 questions are, is it mine? Is it mine now? Is it under my control? So what I would do in this example is Joe now has this renewed space that's expansive, it's calm, full of possibility. And she now knows that when life overwhelms her, that she can pause, reflect, check in on her space, see if there's any management that she can do to maximize her energy.
I think,
And at work and away from work.
yeah, I think releasing cords and pulling back your own cords is something people should do every day, at least once a day, or anytime you feel you don't have the energy level you need to have. You really need to keep your energy compact within you and just your energy and not a lot of other people's energy. I know when I first discovered this, I was driving and I was really happy. I'm driving along and I'm happy. And all of a sudden, I felt like the world was coming apart. And I thought, what happened? And I thought, I'm going to tune into this energy. What's going on? And I felt like it was my daughter. So I called her on the phone and I said, are you okay? She says, no, you can't believe what happened. Rah, rah, rah. And I went, okay, that was her energy. And then I learned about cords and how to release them. And I called my daughter and I said, I just released our cords. And she said, is that what happened? I feel so good now. So people will actually feel this on the other end when you release those cords. That is really wonderful.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not so wonderful for them if they've been suddenly detached and they might be angry that you're no longer doing their work for them.
That happened with my parents.
It depends on the depends on the relationship.
I had to create an obelisk. They didn't want to let go of the cords. So I literally created an obelisk in imaginary space, and I let them cord the obelisk. And then I manifested Rajul, my little helper, who makes sure they don't go from the obelisk to me. And so that kept them happy. They had their cord somewhere, but I was no longer impacted by them. So yeah, sometimes you have to really work at that when you've had it, especially if it's been a long, long time or it's your parents. That's really good.
Well, I think we have a lot of programming that maybe was completely appropriate at the time that it was installed, right? And it's just out of date, and it needs to be updated. So we oftentimes, one of those programs is to be hyper vigilant at looking for problems or potential problems. And so we need to reclaim our imaginations and retrain them that they can, first of all, the brain is not as smart as we think it is. So when I think of something, the brain doesn't know that it didn't really happen. It has trouble telling fact from fiction. So the imagination is a great place to practice things. And what if I imagine the best possible result rather than getting into that panic loop that's so popular, that we're like so good at? We're so good at creating the worst case scenario. What if we were also good at creating the best case scenario?
We can too. Yeah, that's good advice. And from an acupuncture perspective, when people worry, there's actually a pulse that I can feel, but it damages your spleen. And the
Mm,
spleen is paired with the stomach, so worry causes digestive issues. And when you start getting digestive issues, it starts affecting the liver. And the liver is responsible for all our energy going out. So all you're doing is just depleting all your energy by worrying, and you're manifesting what you think about. You manifest what you worry about. So if you stop worrying about it and, like you said, see a positive outcome, that's the reality you're manifesting.
yeah. And there's a gap that we need to fill between what we desire and what we receive. And that gap is our permission to receive whatever that is that we desire. So so I think oftentimes people are creating these things. It's almost like they have a truck that's full of presents, but they're chasing the truck and they're never going to catch it because it's moving. Um, so we have to give ourselves permission to
Let the truck come to us.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's really great. So, how has doing this work impacted you personally?
Well, the secret is that I practice authenticity, which means that in my work, I I want to say always, but always is not a thing. But my goal is to not ask my clients to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself and frequently have already done. So I have personal stories to go with the examples I share.
Hmm.
Um, so I can tell them what my experience is and why I think this is so powerful. So really, um, I've just I've just collected a library of things that have worked for me and that I have witnessed work for friends, colleagues, clients. And so that's the resource that I'm pulling from.
So, you work with people on burnout as well, right? So, what is burnout? How would you describe that?
So burnout is when we have experienced chronic stress for long enough that our bodies are depleted, that they become unable to continue functioning at the level we have been, experiencing. And so that doesn't mean that we can't function. It just means that we don't feel like ourselves. We don't feel our best. And worst case scenarios, we can't function, right? Um, but a lot of people, I think, who who are living under high levels of chronic stress, um, they they get used to it. It becomes the norm. So I'll compare it to drinking and driving. I tell my kids, like, the reason so many people drink and drive is because it didn't kill them.
Mm.
And so they think that they can keep doing it. And so they take bigger and bigger risks until worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that when people are living under chronic stress, it's like that. They think, I can go one more week. I can go one more month. I can go one more year. And if they keep being successful living in this toxic environment, eventually something is going to quit physically, emotionally, spiritually. And a lot of times the first place for these things to show up, like you said, is digestion or sleeping.
Depression.
We find that we're on an island because we've lost touch with our friends and family.
We've isolated ourselves. Okay, so I think that's happened to all of us at least once in our life, so I think we can understand that. So what do we need to do to prevent it?
So there are basic habits, like the reflection that I talked about, like you mentioned, when we don't have to do anything special to end up with all this foreign energy in our space, in our day-to-day lives, and just having something built into our day to flush the day and replenish. So to have those built-in practices as to be valued, like brushing your teeth. So it's really about one step at a time, building these routines into our days, into our weeks, into our months, into our years, that then are kind of like automatic deposits into our resource library, so that when a crisis happens, then I like to joke that sometimes my emergency fund is like a colander. So we don't want that. We don't want our personal resource bank account to be constantly depleted. We want it to be a strong container without many holes in it, so that when we need it, it's there.
So we have to have our own personal process, and I call them red flags. And when you see the red flag, okay, I need to stop. I had one of those last night, and I went, okay, I'm not going to work anymore right now, and I stopped and did other things. So yeah, that's what I do. I have little what I call red flags, certain thought patterns or certain feelings. I know, okay, I have to stop now and take a break. So I think that's what you're trying to say. We need to have some kind of process in our life to help keep things under control.
Yeah, and when we're talking about helpers, they often have pretty good external boundaries, hopefully. And if they don't, that's something certainly that is beneficial. However, these internal boundaries can be equally as valuable and protective. Just like if you take, a daily vitamin, or you eat your spinach, or whatever you do to take care of your body, having those same systems in place to take care of our whole being.
That's true. So are there special treatments for burnout? Or is it just teaching people how to take care of themselves?
Yeah. So when people are burnt out, then ideally we can pause. Usually, most people can't pause too much in terms of, a full life pause. So we have to take those pauses wherever we can. So anything that can wait, let it wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Bad host here. Phone now on mute. Keep
Yeah,
going.
and anything that can be delegated, delegate it. So those are just like a couple of things to think about when you are really depleted. Does it have to be done by you? Does it have to be done now?
So this is all really good. I think these are good lessons for people to learn and keep a mindful eye on. And they're, what do people call it? It's self-care, strong self-care. But sometimes you do need professional help. So how can people find more about you and get hold of you?
So I have a website. My business is called Wise Growth Coaching. So wisegrowthcoaching.com. And if they go to that, they can set up a consultation to meet with me. They can also get some free downloads about burnout prevention and burnout relief.
Are these PDF downloads?
Yes.
Okay, because I do a lot of downloads, but they're energetic downloads. I just want to be clear. So for those of you on the podcast, for if you're on YouTube, the link will be down below. But if you're on the podcast, that was Wise, WISE, Grow, Growth, GROWTH, Coaching, and you know how to spell that, .com. And then you have a special VIP gift for our audience as well, don't you? Tell us about that.
So the VIP gift, which is also on my website, is I am an advanced practitioner of thought field therapy. And so that is my quick notes on how to practice the basic tapping release, as well as the advanced goal setting.
Good. Goals are important. Cool. Well, great. That has been, do you have any, it's been great talking to you about burnout because I know I could have used this back in about 30 years ago in Silicon Valley when I got burnt out. So do you have any final words for our audience?
I just wanted to say that I'm remembering something that Beverly said. We, as helpers, we love what we do. We love the people we do it for. And I just want to remind people that you don't have to hate what you do to get burnt out.
Well, that's the truth.
So limits, we do just have this one body right now. So so limit setting applies to things we love and things we love not so much.
Yes, this is true because I loved computers and I still got burnt out. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Janice. And remember, everyone, be the light you want to see in the world. Bye.